congratulations on the film. I'm a huge fan of wrestling too, so be able to see kind of two of my favorite genres mixed together was really, really fun. Lowell, what inspired you to take this film?
Honestly, like the idea came about when I was at a wrestling match. I was watching an event in my hometown in Saskatchewan, and there was just a certain moment where, and I hadn't been into wrestling a lot lately, so I wasn't familiar with a lot of the characters or the catchphrases or the chants, and I just remember the lights went down, and everybody in the room, I'm talking hundreds of people, were all saying something in unison and moving their arms in unison. And I was looking around, I'm like, I'm scared. I'm like, what? Where am I? And then I thought, like, this is like a cult. It's like I secretly went to a cult meeting, and then I was like, wait a minute. That was ding, light bulb, wrestling cult horror movie. So that was where it began for me.
Ayisha, aka Misbehave. I thought you were great in the film. Tell me a little bit about her and your role, and also your background, maybe with wrestling. You a fan, or is this kind of your first time dipping your toes?
No, I think I grew up as having wrestling as, one of the things that I enjoyed engaging in when I was really little. I used to wrestle with my cousins on Saturday mornings. So I think that that was my introduction into this whole world. Like everybody else, I was familiar with all the characters and, looked forward and got excited to their walkouts and all of that kind of stuff. So I was really, really stoked and amazed that I had the opportunity to dive into that universe a little bit, learn a little bit more about it. What I love about the misbehaved character is that there's a lot of stoicism in her, but there's a lot beneath that that we had to it's kind of pulled out of her throughout the story by the situations that Lowell so um fabulously created for her and the cast. So yeah, I mean, I have a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think that that helped a lot in being able to sell all the physicality of things. And I was really excited about just learning some very basic wrestling techniques and working with Jean Frenette, who I'd worked with in the past, stunt coordinator, to kind of tie everything together. Yeah, for me, it was there a lot of really key elements came together to make it a very unique and enjoyable experience for me, for sure.
One of the things I really appreciated about the film is really the understanding of the behind the scenes and kind of indie wrestling. Lowell, for someone who wasn't too much into wrestling, it's kind of impressive now to hear how much help was people like maybe Chris Jericho or other wrestlers on the film to kind of inform you of really what it's like at backstage at some of these shows.
Honestly, it was mostly just a lot of research. And fortunately, one thing I think that really helped me was I got so into wrestling before I wrote this script that I was trying to get a documentary off the ground on local wrestlers. So I shadowed them for like a couple weeks. And I was so fascinated to see that they were just regular people often because there'd be someone who had like an amazing ring persona and presence, and then they go work at a car dealership. And I was like just watching them like, like not hitting their quota for the week. And I was like, this is crazy. You're like superheroes. You're like, you got secret identities. So I just did a lot of deep digging to write the script to make it feel authentic, not just to the period, but to not what it would be like to be a pro wrestler at the top of your game, but that struggling, someone in the minors just eager to get their bump up to where they want to be in their career. And and by the time we got to Jericho and shooting, Jericho had notes on the script and he caught some things, obviously, that like only a true wrestler or someone who had lived a life in that career would know. So he gave me a few helpful tips, but he was actually quite complimentary, saying like a lot of it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, it was well done. And Aisha, one of the things that I love about actors, actresses, and one of the things that I get jealous of always is being able to be into other people's shoes. In your case, you grew up loving wrestling. Now you get to play an indie wrestler. What were your takeaways from playing somebody who is trying to make it to the next level, but still has to ride in that van or still has to sit on that grungy couch in the backstage and do things like that? What was your experience in kind of putting your own boots on?
I think it allowed me to tap into that part of myself that like into my own concepts of drive and resilience and perseverance and things like that. I think that those are the things that that kind of like help misbehave together in a lot of ways. Is that kind of like unwavering um, dedication to whatever it is she's decided she's going to do. You know, as far as like what I took away from it, I think that these are all things that I kind of assumed, you know, would be required for this type of work, right? Like something like wrestling, that's no joke. Just training jujitsu and competing in jujitsu, there's a lot of, you're constantly getting knocked down and you're constantly having to, you know, you're, for lack of a better term, kind of getting your butt kicked repeatedly and having to kind of get back up and throw yourself out there again. So the idea of starting from the bottom and having to work your way up, and that being a lot harder than people may think, is something that I looked forward to sharing, but I don't know that it's something that was can't say it was like a new concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand. Lowell, tell me a little bit about the filming. You guys had one location. What was it like to kind of put together really almost an entire indie show? But I know that you guys have different gimmick matches that you guys probably had to switch out for, which actually were really ended up being really fun the way you set it up with the different elements.
Thank you. Yeah, we shot in Edmonton in late 2022 and very few locations, very cold out. But the production company behind the film, Department 9, they've set up a studio there. And this is their first film, so we were trying to figure out how to maximize their studio. So we ended up doing a lot of the green room there as a soundstage build. But because of the nature of the chaotic nature of this film, we couldn't shoot much more in their studio. We actually had to find an abandoned warehouse because you know, we had like fire commissioners come in and the fire inspector say you can't shoot in this studio. You have to go somewhere else because of the amount of flames we were having and the damage we were causing. Like literally every match in this film was a disaster for like health and safety. You know, it's like, oh, you're gonna do that. Oh, now you're gonna try and flood the building. Great. Now what's next? You're gonna set it on fire. So we found it, like I said, an abandoned auction house that ended up being our home for half the film. Just really a nasty place that we were like, okay, wear your masks and sanitize often. And the other part, I really wanted this to feel like a cult environment, and I had written it to be in a summer camp, you know, like a kind of like weird, creepy commune. But we were having a hard time finding one within the zone of Edmonton that we could shoot at. So we ended up widening our net and opening our minds, and we found a very bizarre 70s mansion that I was like, okay, well, if I had a cult, I would want to live in a place like this and bring all my people there. So we thought outside the box and shot the rest of the movie in this weird 70s house.
I thought it was shot pretty cool. Really in the spirit of indie wrestling. I've been to a couple of shows where nothing felt safe, but we had a great time. So one time I was sitting down and I literally moved seats because I was like I probably should move. I moved, and
Yes.
5 seconds later, a wrestler flies past where I was sitting, and I was like, that was
That could
really.
have been me. Yeah.
But yeah, just a whole lot of fun. Aisha, tell me a little bit about working with Lowell and kind of the ideas that he had and the direction that he gave you. Sometimes I like asking these questions while they're in the room because sometimes they don't give their flowers.
Do people insult people in front of each other? That'd be great.
That would be. I haven't had that happen yet.
I
Well,
have
first,
no insults for Lowell, unfortunately, but I have to say that I'm enjoying doing these interviews with him because I'm actually learning a little bit more about his process on certain things that I didn't know before. Like I had never considered the health and safety issues, you know, the inspectors and all that kind of stuff. But it's true, like we literally set buildings on fire and flooded them and did all this crazy stuff. But working with Lowell was fantastic. I still remember the first call that we had. I always got this sense that, you know, he was hiring me because he trusted me with the character and he believed that I had whatever it was that he needed to tell the story he needed to tell. And um, it's really rewarding and fulfilling as an actor to go on to a project with a director who you're collaborating with, you know? So we did a lot of kind of like conversations back and forths, but like not arguing. We were literally just kind of like fleshing out all the little details that we needed to flesh out so that we were on the same page on these things, finding that midpoint where, you know, my interpretation and what he needed and his vision came together, and being like, okay, that's what we're doing. And so, you know, he was, like I said, very trusting and generous with allowing me room to explore and give whatever I had to give. And it made it really easy for me to trust him when he said, no, do this. You know, if he said, no, do this, I was like, well, he doesn't really like, you know, he's not, and that means something. And sometimes I would kind of like, well, I'm not really understanding, like, that doesn't really make sense. But when I watched the movie back, it's hilarious to me because I was so sure that I knew what movie we were making and what we were doing. And I watched it back and I was like, okay, I had no idea that that's what we were doing. This is so much better than what I thought we were making. And so whatever it was he was seeing, and however it was he was overseeing us, you know, he was baking one hell of a cake that, like, yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming. So thanks,
I'm
Will.
glad I was in the room. That was
Yeah,
nice.
me too.
Sometimes you see the cracked eggs in the open flour. The cake is
Yeah.
in the oven. You gotta wait a little bit. Lowell, I'm asking you this. It's almost a rhetorical question because of the answers that Ayisha gave. But what made you pick her as your lead, and what stood out about her performance as you filmed?
Well, I was very afraid for the character of Misbehave. I knew it would be a difficult role to cast because she had to be all of the things, you know, like there was no covering if she wasn't a good actor or wasn't a good fighter. So like there were certain roles where we were like, you know, doing the checklist of like, actually, she could just be an actor with a good stunt double, or this person has to be a fighter. All they're doing is fighting, but there was really nowhere to hide with Misbehave. So um, luckily, I'd gone through a workshop with some other producers and directors prior to this while I was workshopping the script. And I said to like 20 really smart people in a room, I'm screwed. I'm so afraid of this character. And a mutual friend of ours, Lauren McKinley, was like, privately said after, like, you don't have to worry. I actually know I'm casting your film for you and I know the person. So um, so Aisha was on my radar from that point forward, and we did a casting call, and she wasn't in the casting call, and people were fine, but I was like, I don't know. I think I had my heart set on her. So, um, you know, I reached out to her directly. I was pretty clear in my intent, and then when we worked together, thankfully it was everything. You know, like you just have to trust people, right? And uh, she she was recommended by someone who had a strong history of being smart and working hard and being right. So I assumed she wouldn't be just like, you know what I mean? Certain people a recommendation means something from, and others you're like, I don't know if I trust you. So um, luckily Aisha, yeah, she didn't disappoint and she was there to do it. And she wasn't just like there to just do it because I said so. She was there to do it because she cared. And every day, like she said, was a conversation and a fight, but not a fight against each other, a fight together.
Yeah, it's everybody trying to reach a common goal. She gets to play a wrestler, which is, something if you grew up loving, you want to be able to walk out to a crowd at some point in your life. You want to have that moment in the ring. So, luckily as an actor, actress, you get that opportunity, and Aisha, I'm glad you got that chance to do that. Um, with you kind of going on your wrestling journey, Lowell, I did want to ask you, what is it now that has maybe caught your attention, captivated you? What's your favorite part about wrestling?
Well, I learned a lot about the character creation of, like, within the wrestling world, which is something that, again, we got to explore. Lowell, you know, allowed us to work with the wrestlers, the local wrestlers that were training us and teaching us, and come out with our walkouts and, you know, our signature moves and these type of things. And it was just like the detail and the attention that's put into all of these things, whether it be the costume, the walkout, the energy, the like catchphrases, and then of course just the like sheer fear that I felt of throwing myself backwards to take a bump, and then trying to imagine or watching, you know, Justin or Mo jump off the top rope at each other and do all these insane things. Um, I just have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for that craft, because um it's like there really is nothing, there's no way to fake that. Like, that is, there's no padding under that mat. There's, you know, there's no faking making contact of a foot flying to you from the top. Like this stuff is actually happening, and the amount of skill and precision and trust that is required to create that live where you only get one shot is bonkers to me. Absolutely bonkers. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd
I
totally
love
echo that
wrestling.
because it's like the relationship, the constant conversation around wrestling being fake, but it's like
Yeah.
spend enough time with any of these athletes watching what they do. It's like it might be theatrical, but like people are really throwing their bodies left, right, center, taking real hits. Like it's insane. And to answer your question from my point of view, like what interests me the most from wrestling and what I'm taking away, and what got me into writing the script is not the wrestling, it's the relationship between the crowd and the performer. And that's something I find fascinating. I relate to it as an indie filmmaker. And I was just so blown away by like this kind of contract between the two of them, like we may know that you're going a little too far or being too big, but we're part of this with you. We are as committed as you are, maybe not with our bodies, but with our minds and our voices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I share one thing that I learned that I thought was interesting was I always kind of assumed, or I think that, we're talking about the whether or not wrestling is real or fake. And, you figure like, okay, well, in order to, like I trained jujitsu and I competed for a long time. And, there's no, someone's coming after you, you're coming after them. We never know what's going to happen. And I always kind of assumed that like this was kind of choreographed, at least.
Mhm.
And to learn that like that it's not, and these people can have never wrestled together before and kind of go in there and do this crazy performance on the fly like that is yeah, that's something I learned to absolutely be the truth of how this works, and that just like blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Yeah, so much trust and responsibility for each of the athletes and to take care of each other. Thank you so much, Lowell and Ayisha, for your time. Congratulations on Dark Match. I love that we're getting a wrestling horror film because we see a lot of vignettes, a lot of storylines being implemented in wrestling companies. Now we actually have a movie, so that makes it fun. Thank you both, and I'll talk to you again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Manny.